So Microsoft's Satya Nadella calls the AI bubble burst. The CEO of Microsoft just accidentally admitted what many of us have been suspected for months. The AI bubble is bursting. Satya Nadella, in what might be the most revealing statement that any tech CEO this year, declares that AGI is not the real benchmark. 10% economic growth is. So the company that's bet billions of dollars on AI partnerships with OpenAI is suddenly changing how they measure success. After 25 years in software development, I know exactly what this means. They're moving the goalpost because they can't score. This is the tech equivalent of saying we didn't lose, we just redefine winning. So today I'm going to break down why Satya Nadella's comments would terrify AI investors, and would be interesting for the rest of technology company to know what to do with this very useful thing that AI is, but not exactly what everybody thought it was going to be. So let's dive into this today. Welcome to StartaPack. I'm Spencer Thomas, and here at StartaPack, we train software developers in our licensed coding boot camps, as well as to build custom software solutions for companies. With a decade of executive leadership as a fractional CTO and 25 years in software development, I've mastered transforming tech teams and products. So at this point, you've got a lot of stockholders from Microsoft who are like waiting for the stock bump more than the hype, but actually to see the revenue start coming in. Right now, all their investments in AI have just been a cost center. It's only cost them money. They've made a lot because they've hyped it up on a lot of stock, but they haven't necessarily made it on their actual gross earnings yet. So I'm going to go through a couple of articles today. I'm going to put these articles down in the link description below, because I think that these articles are going to be really telling to, and it's a good breakdown of this interview here, right? So like AI, this title is Microsoft's AI midlife crisis and why Satya Nadella's caution should terrify Silicon Valley. Now, I'm not going to go this far. I think there is some FUD in this article, which I'm not a huge one, but I do think there's some really good call outs here, right? And this very first one where he says, and this is a quote from Satya Nadella: AGI is not the real benchmark. 10% economic growth is. And this is what I've been saying for a while here, right? After pouring billions of dollars into OpenAI and positioning Microsoft as a leader in the race to artificial general intelligence, they're starting to move this a little bit, because I think they're realizing that that's not going to actually happen. And what he's saying is, we're not winning the AI research race, so let's change how we keep scoring, right? Now, Microsoft's been a king of this, right? They've owned the desktop, they've owned Office, they've owned development tools, and now they're even a huge player in the cloud space. So they want to be able to continue to keep winning, and they want to be able to take this investment and be able to make something out of it. So I think the timing is really particularly telling, coming right as the competitors are releasing their own advanced AI models, and Microsoft's technology advance through OpenAI appears to be shrinking, right? So we kind of seem to see OpenAI, starting to pull away a little bit. So there's an abrupt pivot here from AGI is the future to economic growth is what matters. And this is really what I think is really important, is because despite years of flashy demos and bold promises, Microsoft's AI agent ecosystem remains largely vaporware. There's not a whole lot that AI is doing. Now, that being said, there are some use cases for it, and I've been a big fan of a lot of these use cases, right? So you have Copilot that's built into Visual Studios. We're seeing Copilot run on some things, but at this point, it's still a flashy demo. And what Nadella is really pointing out to is the parts that I really want to capitalize on here, because what he's saying overall is, right, is that, I've spent decades watching Microsoft dance with emerging technologies. There's denial, this thing won't matter. Dismissal, our existing products are better. Panic, we need to catch up immediately. Checkbook, let's buy our way into relevance. And reframe, we're playing a game. Now, in AI, they actually were a little different on this, because they were a pretty early investor into OpenAI. And so they've really kind of got onto this. And now they've actually got a commodity to be an early person in on AI. But they're like, now what do we do with it? Because as this guy's pointing out here, there's a lot of nonsensical benchmark hacking, and if they don't translate to broader economic benefits, then he's saying the real benchmark of the world is world GDP growth at 10%. Now, that's a big growth. World GDP growth at 10% is, we're not winning the AI research race, so let's change how we keep score, right? So he's pointing out, and a lot of people are saying, oh, we're moving really fast, because see how quick they're going from GPT-3 to 4, and how much the Claude leapfrogs and everybody. But these are only marginal gains. We still aren't seeing these actually impact people's revenue yet. Now, everyone's going to come back and point at all the stock and all these big fundraisers and everything. But the reality is Microsoft continues to showcase capabilities that work perfectly in demos, but they fail to be a fail in this world where it does. So the gap between Microsoft's AI marketing and what their products actually deliver have been wider, and Nadella's comment suggests that they're acknowledging this, right? So the limitations on Microsoft's current AI agents are embarrassingly obvious. They're annoying LLM focused. So you remember Clippy back in the day, right? The little paperclip guy. I'm dating myself here, right? But Clippy was some of their early attempts at thinking they could help to fix this. Now they got really excited with their OpenAI investment, and as soon as ChatGPT gained a ton of popularity, they started to talk about AGI and a lot of other things that would go away. However, I recognize when a technology needs several more generations of development, and we are talking generations of development is going to happen. Microsoft may be aggressively selling Copilot and Copilot-enabled products, and they're nice. Like, I like using them for development, but so far they haven't replaced a developer yet, right? So, like, let's talk a little bit about this too here, because, you know, a little while ago, Nadella even said that AI was going to replace the CRUD business apps, right? That we weren't going to need these CRUD level business apps. And I've built a lot of these in my career. Most of my career has actually been spent building these basic CRUD business apps that do a specific thing for a specific person. Now, I wanted to use this because he's talking about this approach here, right? This is a quote from Nadella as well, where he says, but if you think about it, they're essentially CRUD databases with a bunch of business logic. Now, the problem is the business logic they've not been able to nail this down to make it consistent. And that's the problem that we're going to highlight here, right? So I like this joke. So someday we won't even need coders anymore. We'll be able to just write the specifications and the program will write itself. Oh, wow, you're right. We'll be able to write a comprehensive and precise spec, and bam, we won't need programs anymore. And the guy's like, exactly. And do you know what the industry term for project specifications is? Comprehensive and precise enough to generate a program? No, it's called code. Right? And I really like this joke because at the end of the day, we're still seeing a bunch of vaporware. If you look at Microsoft 365 agents and their SDKs, it still doesn't include real AI, right? And that's the part that I think is right now what we're seeing is we're seeing the limitations and that they're embarrassingly obvious. Today's Microsoft's AI agents are annoyingly LLM-focused chatbots for everybody, and that's all they can really do with it right now. Right now, these fancy chatbots are what everybody is calling AI. Now, I think LLMs are very useful tools, and I've talked about that a lot here on my channel. So we can definitely be using these to build a lot of useful agents that focus on specific use cases. So I've talked already a couple times here about Copilot built into Visual Studios. This is an example of a very specific use case. It is very helpful when you need to refactor code quickly. It's very helpful when you need to create some boilerplate classes. It's very helpful for a lot of those kind of things. However, we're seeing a lot of this AI code now hitting production and seeing massive security vulnerabilities, massive scaling problems, and other things because the AI is just a regurgitation of a ton of existing things. So until we can see a lot more of this specific Copilot build-in, we're going to need to see this on a multi-generational basis to be able to see this really become useful. So, I've seen this come around, and I've had a lot of people in my comments telling me that I'm wrong in what I'm saying on this because they're like, no, look how fast things are progressing. And then they always tell me about this thing or this thing or this thing, or have you used Cursor and have you used this? But the thing about it is it still hasn't replaced a human yet, right? So these things are great. I think they're fantastic tools. I think LLM's a new tool, but I can't tell you how many times I saw Web 2.0. No code system seems to come back around. No code, low code systems seem to come back around every 5 years. Web 3.0, and now we've got LLMs. And every time it's like, oh, this is going to replace developers because nobody really understands why these developers are making a ton of money and in such demand. And so what it's done is it's allowed people to go into this mythical utopian thought where a non-technical person can start to build technical things. And it's even got a phrase now. But really, ultimately, at the end of the day, my feelings for it are like this, right? So this is one of my favorite scenes from Princess Bride. I'm going to play this scene here really quick.
You've got very good arms.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
So my point here is that everybody keeps learning to say AI. Everybody's saying AI this, AI that, AI is going to do this. Well, it's not really AI. LLM is really not AI, and we've been using this term for far too long. Now, if this is kind of like your systems and they're not really connecting and not really speaking the same language, reach out to us, because here at StartaPack, our specialty is connecting systems so your company can work like a well-oiled machine. So check us out at startapack.com/Spencer, and we can help you out. Now, Nadella's benchmarks of the 10% world GDP growth reveals how far current AI technology still is coming from delivering genuine economic value. Now, I would even argue if you see company GDP grow by 10% on actual AI use, not hype, right? This focus on economic impact rather than technical capabilities, because that's where they get to these false benchmarking, is what's going to be really most important. The gap between AI, as everybody's calling it, investments, and AI economics, the return that comes back on somebody paying for this product, is what we've got to see shift before I really see a lot of this, right? So I think that there's kind of this, we are definitely going to see a little bit of a coding reboot. There was this other article that I was reading, which I thought was really interesting. This guy was talking about how learning AI is learn to code all over again. So we need to stop telling people who or what is going to replace them, right? And so I think this is really an important part, because he was like, hey, AI learning course guys, do you have any idea what it takes to really learn AI? And it's a lot, right? So if we go back, to the dark days of 2021, he's talking about how the learn to code movement happened, right? And we do train people how to develop, how to become a software developer. We are one of these people, one of those who are doing the coding boot camps to help. We do have a different recipe, and I would love to chat on anybody who's interested. But my big point here is that, he's saying nobody says learn to perform surgery, right? Now, I think that's kind of a bad example. But in this case, there are some SaaS lessons that can be learned, and some things that we can learn from the past of how we're looking at learning AI. So what does it mean to learn AI? Now, here at StartaPack, we love to train software developers on our licensed coding boot camps, but we also work, and I provide you a lot of different coding samples for how to take a budget PC and build it out so you can build an AI agent, and then how to write code against it so you can start to do things in a very systematic way. We're actually launching a product next week, which will actually take every single email that you are going to send in a group of, think of cold outreach, a group of cold outreach emails, and personalize every single one of these so that they can get out, right? Now, this is going to be a huge thing. And I know there's a lot of other use cases that we can go to safely be using AI for doing some awesome tools, right? Is it going to replace a human? No. Is it going to change some things? Absolutely, right? So Microsoft's current AI strategy strongly resembles the early days of cloud computing. There was this promising revolutionary capabilities while actually delivering incremental improvements wrapped in new technology. So just as a move to the cloud initiative became huge, ran rampant, and it was the same as running your same old servers on someone else's data center, right? This AI transformation is going to be running your same old business logic, but with a chat interface in front of it. And that's, largely what we're seeing. And that's why we've got to move away from just a bunch of fancy chatbots, which really are just a bunch of party tricks. Now, Microsoft knows this transition pattern well from their journey. Microsoft's been around the block, and I believe Nadella is actually a really intelligent guy who I think is steering the company in an interesting way. I'm not saying he's perfect, but I'm saying I think he's a fascinating person to study as we've watched Microsoft. So there's the parallel suggests that AI will eventually deliver value, but much more slowly and in different ways than the current hype cycle suggests. It's going to take 5 to 10 years, and that's still going to take a lot of development to get there. Guess who has to do the development? Bing, surprise, developers. So this is why we can see that developers are not going to go away. Software developers are still in demand. Are we seeing a little bit of a dip? Yes. This is from many things that I've talked about on this channel before, where we saw the overhiring from COVID. We see the rundown of that. While interest rates are high, it's expensive to develop. Money becomes expensive. So we're going to continue to see a lot of this push toward making this AI. And I think the money that's been spent towards the AI hype is actually hurting developers right now too, because people aren't seeing the economic growth in their companies yet from that AI investment. So they can't invest on developers because they spent all that money paying for AI tools or paying for AI investments that haven't panned out yet. So I really think the path forward is going to be a huge reality check. I think we're hitting this point of reality check where we're not just talking about timelines that Microsoft's talking about, but we're even seeing this shift with OpenAI. They just released their Agents SDK. Why? Because you see them shifting away from this, we're going to solve everything with one chat, and starting to double down into specific niches that they can work on. So Satya Nadella's comments suggest that Microsoft's beginning to embrace this, and I think the technology world as a whole is beginning to embrace this as we see LLMs, i.e. AI, start to shift towards a real world use case as a very powerful technology, which they are. Now, what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to hear your comments, but I definitely can promise you that developers are not going to be replaced by a bunch of vibe coders. So what are your thoughts? Here at StartaPack, we love to train software developers in our licensed coding boot camps, as well as to build custom software solutions for companies. So reach out, because we would love to help your company get up to speed. And here's some great information about some of our coding boot camps.
Want to become a software developer but don't want to spend 4 years in college and rack up massive student loan debts? Think you need technical expertise to get started? Welcome to StartaPack, a better way to start your software career without student loans and years without income. One-on-one tutoring is included, so you never get stuck and have guidance through the whole process. No technical experience is necessary. Learn at your own pace and in your own space. StartaPack has worked with local state agencies in your area to make it so that qualifying students can get the program costs covered entirely, and students can start earning while they learn.
StartaPack's .NET Coding Bootcamp was a game changer for my career. As someone with no prior programming experience, I was initially intimidated by the idea of learning to code, but the instructors at StartaPack broke down complex concepts into easy to understand lessons and provided hands-on projects that really cemented my understanding. The curriculum was comprehensive and up to date and got me ready for my first job. What really set StartaPack apart was the focus on practical, real-world skills. Thanks to StartaPack, I landed my dream job as a .NET developer within weeks of graduating. I went from knowing nothing about code to building professional-grade web applications in just a few intense months. If you're looking to break into .NET development or level up your coding skills, I cannot recommend StartaPack enough.
Complete our 3-month coding bootcamp, gain hands-on experience, and land a paid internship. With 2 years of experience on average, our graduates are making over $80,000 per year. The 3-month program includes technologies from Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. No debt, just a quick path to earning. Check out StartaPack.com to code your